I whispered the code into the nurse's ear. 3 numbers that would open my safe. $2 million in gold coins waited inside. The doctor stood in the hallway, watching us through the small window in my door. He thought he had bought her loyalty for $50,000. He thought she was on his side now. He was wrong, and he was about to find out that trying to bury me was the biggest mistake of his life. But let me go back a few days. That's when I first knew something was wrong. I was lying in my hospital bed. My eyes couldn't focus. Everything looked like shapes moving through fog. The drugs they gave me made my head feel stuffed with cotton, but my ears still worked just fine. One afternoon, Beatrice leaned close to my face. She thought I was too drowsy to understand. Her lips almost touched my ear. "You're going to die soon, Dad," she whispered. "Why don't you just let go?" She pulled back and smiled at me like nothing happened. Then she stepped into the hallway to talk to Dr. Aris. My daughter came to visit me every day after that. She said she wanted to be there for me. But I knew the truth now. She was keeping an eye on my progress. She was waiting for me to die. She would talk to Dr. Aris in low voices. I couldn't hear what they said, but I could see them through my door. They would point at papers. They would nod at each other. Sometimes they would look back at me, then quickly look away. I knew something dark was happening. I just didn't know exactly what they were planning. And then there was Dr. Aris. He visited my room too many times, 5 times a day, 6 times. Every time he came in, he would send the nurses away. He would check my IV line himself. He would write things on his clipboard. But none of it felt like normal doctor stuff. It felt like he was watching me, waiting for something. The drugs kept me too drowsy to think straight during the day. But at night, when the medicine wore off a little, my mind got clearer. That's when I met Elena. She came into my room on the night shift, just a shadow at first, checking the machines. But on the second night, I saw her face in the dim light. Something about her looked familiar. The shape of her jaw, the way her forehead creased when she focused. I couldn't place it, but I knew I had seen those features before. When she reached for my wrist to check my pulse, I grabbed her sleeve. My voice came out like sandpaper. "Did your father serve in the army? Or your grandfather?" She looked surprised. "My grandfather," she said. "He was an army medic." "What was his name?" "Arthur. Arthur Vance." The name hit me like a splash of cold water. Arthur Vance. The medic who pulled shrapnel out of my leg in a jungle 40 years ago. I remembered his face now. Elena had the same eyes. I held on to her sleeve and told her everything. I told her what my daughter had whispered in my ear. I told her about the secret conversations with the doctor. I told her Aris was visiting my room too many times. I told her someone was trying to kill me, but I didn't know how. I asked her to watch Aris. Just observe, just see if anything seemed off. She pulled back. I could see the fear in her face. Aris was a respected doctor. If she accused him of something and she was wrong, her career would be over. "I'm not asking you to fight," I said. "I'm just asking you to look." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. The next morning, Elena stood in the hallway near my door. She held a clipboard and pretended to read charts. At 7 o'clock, the door swung open. Dr. Aris walked in. He had no charts. He had no morning pills. He was carrying a single syringe. Through the small window, Elena watched him walk straight to my IV stand. He didn't check my heartbeat. He didn't look at my face. He just pushed the needle into my fluid bag and squeezed the syringe. Then he turned around and left without saying a word. Elena's hands gripped her clipboard so hard, her knuckles turned white. Elena had just watched a doctor inject something into my fluid bag without writing it down. Now she had to find out what it was. She didn't go home after her night shift. She told the morning nurses she wanted to stay and help with the busy patient load. They were happy to have her. They told her Dr. Aris was a wonderful man. They said he took special care of me. He visited my room more than any other patient on the floor. Elena smiled and nodded, but she kept her eyes on my door. She watched through the small window all day long. Every time Aris walked into my room, he sent the other nurses away. He would tell one to get more bandages. He would tell another to check on a different patient. He always wanted to be alone with me. Elena counted 4 separate injections before the sun went down. Aris never scanned any medicine bottles. He never wrote anything in my chart. He just pulled small glass vials from his coat pocket, pushed the liquid into my fluid bag, and walked out. He moved his hands like a magician hiding cards. That night, Elena used her access to the hospital pharmacy computers. She looked up drug combinations. She checked my chart and compared it to what she had seen. The pieces started to fit together. She came back to my room at 11 o'clock. The floor was quiet. Most of the lights were off. My head was clearer now because the daytime drugs were wearing off. Elena sat on the edge of my bed. Her face was serious. "I know what he's doing," she said. "During the day, he's giving you heavy sedatives. That's why you can't think straight. That's why you sleep so much. He wants you drowsy so you can't fight back." She paused. I could see her hands shaking a little. "But that's not the worst part. He's also giving you small doses of two drugs, potassium and digoxin. By themselves, they're normal heart medicines. But together, in the wrong amounts, they stress your heart. Slowly, a little more each day." I stared at her. "What happens at the end?" "Your heart gives out," she said. "It looks like natural causes. No one orders an autopsy for an old man whose heart just stopped. On paper, you're getting perfect care, but he's killing you one injection at a time." The room felt colder. I looked up at the ceiling and let the truth sink in. My own daughter wanted me dead, and she had found a doctor willing to do the job. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Elena didn't give me a big speech. She just shrugged. "Because you asked, and because I saw it." She told me she was going to switch to the day shift. She wanted to be closer to Eris. She wanted to find out more. But there was still a problem. We knew someone was killing me. We didn't know why. We didn't know what Beatrice and the doctor were really after. "I need to find out what they want," Elena said. "And to do that, I have to get close to them." I looked at her. "How?" Her jaw tightened. She looked toward the door, then back at me. "By making them think I want what they want." Elena was about to do something dangerous. She was going to walk up to a man who had been poisoning me for days, and she was going to offer to help him finish the job. First, she had to keep me alive. Elena switched to the day shift. Every time Dr. Aris left my room after one of his secret injections, she rushed in and swapped my fluid bag for a fresh one. The poison never reached my blood. Day by day, my strength started coming back, but I pretended to stay weak. I kept my eyes half closed. I let my hands shake when the nurses checked on me. After 3 days, Elena made her move. She found Aris alone in a quiet hallway near the staff room. She walked right up to him and spoke in a flat voice. "I've seen the vials." "I know what you're doing to the old man in room 412. The color drained from his face. His forehead started to sweat. He opened his mouth to make excuses. Elena didn't let him finish. "I don't want you to stop," she said. "I want to know why, and I want a cut." Eris stared at her for a long moment. He was trying to figure out if she was serious. Finally, he started talking. He told her about Beatrice. "My daughter owed a lot of money to a dangerous man named Victor Slade, $300,000. Slade was a loan shark. He had already threatened to hurt her if she didn't pay by the end of the month. I had a collection of rare gold coins locked in a safe in my workshop. $2 million worth. Once I was dead, Beatrice would inherit everything, but she couldn't wait for me to die on my own. She needed the money now. That's where Eris came in. He was helping her speed things along. In return, he would get a share of the gold." Elena kept her face calm. Inside, she felt sick. "What happens after you get the coins?" she asked. Eris shrugged like it was nothing. "One last injection. His heart gives out. It looks natural. No one asks questions." Elena nodded slowly. "And the safe? How do you plan to open it?" Eris frowned. That was their problem. They needed a locksmith, and locksmiths cost money. Worse, a locksmith would be a witness, someone who could talk later. Elena saw her opening. That night, Eris brought her to his office. Beatrice was already there. She was pacing back and forth, checking her phone every few seconds. She looked tired, scared. She wasn't laughing or smiling. She was a woman who knew that very bad people were coming for her if she didn't pay. Elena played her part. Tired nurse, underpaid, ready for a chance at something better. Beatrice explained the situation again. The coins, the safe, the deadline, the problem with the code. "I can get the code," Elena said. "He trusts me. Give me a few days to work on him." Beatrice's eyes lit up. "If you get us that code, I'll give you $50,000 from the sale." $50,000. Elena felt something shift in her chest when she heard the number. That kind of money could change her whole life. She thought about her mother's medical bills. She thought about starting over somewhere new. The feeling lasted for just a moment. Then she pushed it down and buried it deep. "Deal," Elena said. They shook hands. Later that night, Elena came back to my room. She told me everything. The debt, the loan shark, the plan to kill me for my coins. I listened without saying a word. When she finished, I looked at her. "How long do we have?" Elena's face was grim. "Less than 2 weeks." I had to give Elena the keys to everything I owned. If I was wrong about her, I would be dead before I could regret it. I looked at her face in the dim light of my hospital room. She had risked her job to help me. She had lied to dangerous people. Now I had to trust her with my life's work. 14, 32, 9, I said. "That's the code to my safe." Elena wrote the numbers down on a small notepad. Her hand was steady, but I didn't stop there. I gave her everything. The spare key to my house was under the third flagstone by the back door. The alarm code was my old Army service number. The workshop was in my basement, behind a false panel in the storage room. Elena wrote it all down without asking questions. Then I told her the plan. "Go to my house before you tell them you have the code," I said. "Take the coins out and hide them somewhere safe, somewhere only you know. Then put fake ones in the safe." She looked up. "Where am I going to get fake gold coins?" I gave her another name, Mitchell Crane, my lawyer for 30 years. Crane knew people. He had a contact who made props for museums, copper slugs painted with gold wash. They looked real enough in low light. They weighed close enough to fool someone who had never held real gold before. "Call Crane," I said. "Tell him I sent you. He'll get you the fakes." Elena nodded, but I wasn't finished. "We need proof," I said. "We need them on tape talking about killing me." I reached under my pillow and pulled out a small digital recorder. I had asked one of the night nurses to bring it from the lost and found. I told her I wanted to record messages for my family. "Get them to talk about the final injection," I said. "Get them to say exactly what they're going to do to me." Elena took the recorder and slipped it into her pocket. 2 days later, she met with Beatrice and Eris again. She played nervous. She asked questions. "What happens after we get the coins? What about the old man?" Eris was feeling confident now. He explained everything. "One last injection. My heart would stop. It would look like natural causes. No one would order an autopsy." Beatrice didn't smile. Her face was tight with worry. "Just make it quick," she said. "I don't want him to suffer more than he has to." Elena captured every word. That same week, Elena went to my house. She used the key under the flagstone. She punched in the alarm code. She found the false panel in the storage room and climbed down to my workshop. The safe opened on her first try. Inside were rows of gleaming gold coins in velvet cases, my whole life's collection. She took pictures of everything. Then she packed the coins into a duffel bag and drove across town. She rented a storage unit under a fake name, paid cash, no paper trail. She hid my gold behind a stack of old boxes and locked the door. The next day, she picked up the replicas from Crane's contact, copper slugs with a thin coat of gold paint. She went back to my house and filled the velvet cases with the fakes. She closed the safe and reset the code. The trap was ready. Elena came back to the hospital that night. She found Beatrice and Eris waiting in the hallway. "I got the code," she said. Beatrice grabbed her arm. "Tonight. We go tonight." Elena nodded. What they didn't know was that the gold they were about to steal was worthless copper, and the police were already waiting for Elena's call. 3 people drove to an old man's house that night to steal $2 million in gold. Only one of them knew the safe was full of painted copper. Beatrice was behind the wheel. Her hands gripped it so tight her knuckles were white. Aris sat in the passenger seat, tapping his fingers on his knee. Elena sat in the back, her face calm, her heart pounding. They parked a block away and walked through the shadows to the back door. Elena found the key under the third flagstone. She punched in the alarm code. The little light turned green. They moved through the dark house without turning on any lights. Elena led them to the storage room. She pulled back the false panel and climbed down the stairs to the workshop. Beatrice and Eris followed close behind. The safe sat in the corner, heavy and gray. Elena stepped aside and let Beatrice enter the code herself. 14, 32, 9. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Beatrice gasped. Even in the dim light of their flashlights, the gold seemed to glow. Rows of coins sat in velvet cases, just like the old man had kept them for decades. Eris laughed nervously. "It's real! It's all real!" They loaded the coins into heavy canvas bags. Beatrice kept looking over her shoulder like she expected someone to jump out of the shadows. But the house stayed silent. They drove to the docks. The old salt warehouse sat at the edge of the pier. The smell of seawater and rotting wood hung in the air. A single light flickered inside. Victor Slade was waiting. He stood near a stack of rusted shipping crates. Two men in leather jackets stood behind him. Their faces were hard and their eyes didn't blink. Beatrice walked forward with the bags. Her voice shook when she spoke. "It's all here. 2 million. We're done now, right? We're square?" Slade didn't smile. He didn't even nod. He just reached into his coat and pulled out a heavy pocket knife. He grabbed one coin from the bag. He pressed the blade against its surface and dragged it across. The gold paint peeled away. Underneath was a dull reddish-brown streak. Copper. Slade's face went dark. He dropped the coin. It hit the concrete floor with a hollow, dead sound. "You brought me copper," he said. His voice was quiet. That made it worse. Beatrice screamed. She fell to her knees and grabbed handfuls of coins from the bag. She scratched at them with her fingernails, one after another. All fake. All worthless. Eris stumbled backward. His face was the color of wet paper. "That's impossible," he said. "We took them from the safe ourselves. We watched the door open. He stopped. They both turned to look at Elena. She was already stepping backward toward the warehouse door. Her phone was in her hand. She wasn't looking at them anymore. She was looking past them, at something outside. "What did you do?" Beatrice whispered. Her voice cracked. Elena didn't answer. The warehouse doors exploded open. Blue and red lights flooded the darkness. The sound of boots and shouting voices filled the air. "Police! Drop your weapons! Get on the ground!" Slade's men froze. Beatrice collapsed flat on the concrete, sobbing. Eris tried to run, but two officers tackled him before he made it 5 steps. Handcuffs clicked shut. One by one, they were dragged toward the flashing lights. Elena stood in the doorway. She watched them take her enemies away. Detective Reyes walked up beside her. "Recording?" he asked. Elena pulled the small digital device from her pocket and handed it over. "Everything's on there." Reyes nodded. "The old man's going to want to hear about this." Elena looked out at the city lights across the water. "I'll tell him myself." 2 weeks later, the hospital bed was just a memory. The drugs were out of my system. My hands didn't shake anymore. My mind was clear. I was sitting in my favorite leather chair at home, feeling the afternoon sun on my face. The house was quiet. For the first time in months, I could breathe without fear. Beatrice and Dr. Eris were sitting in county jail. The judge had denied bail after he heard Elena's recording. Their own voices, talking about the final injection, played in that courtroom. 20 years for attempted murder. 20 more for conspiracy and theft. They weren't getting out anytime soon. Victor Slade was locked up too. Extortion, loan sharking, weapons charges. His 2 men turned on him the moment the police put pressure on them. The prosecutor told me they had enough evidence to win without my testimony, but I told him I would be there anyway. I wanted to look my daughter in the eye one last time. 3 letters had arrived from Beatrice. They sat on my kitchen table, still sealed. She was begging for forgiveness. I could tell by the desperate handwriting on the envelopes. I didn't open any of them. I looked at the wall where her graduation photo used to hang. The frame was gone now. I had taken it down the day I came home from the hospital. There was just a small hole in the wall where the nail used to be. I felt no anger, no sadness, just a quiet, empty space where my daughter used to live in my heart. The doorbell rang. Elena stood on my porch. She looked tired, but there was a lightness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She smiled when she saw me standing on my own feet. "You look good," she said. "I feel good." She came inside and sat across from me. She told me the coins were still safe in the storage unit. She would take me there whenever I was ready. The real gold, all $2 million of it, was waiting for me. Then she stood up to leave. She started to say goodbye. She didn't ask for anything. She thought that justice was enough. I stopped her. "Wait," I said. I reached for the envelope on the side table. "This is for you." She opened it slowly. When she saw what was inside, her breath caught in her throat. It wasn't $50,000. It was a check for $1 million, exactly half of the collection she had saved. Her hands started to shake. "I can't take this," she whispered. "Yes, you can," I said. "I know you felt something when they offered you that money. Everyone would." But you didn't take it. You did what was right when no one was watching. That's worth more than gold. I told her to pay off her mother's medical bills, clear her debts, start a new life. She was still crying when she drove away. I sat back in my chair and held the last gold coin I had kept for myself. I felt its weight in my palm. I looked at the empty spot on the wall where my daughter's picture used to be. Beatrice was right about one thing. Someone was going to be dead soon. But it was only her future that died that night. I was 82 years old. I had outlived my enemies, outplayed my own daughter, and given a stranger a reason to believe in people again. I wasn't finished. I was just getting started.